micro balloons, which were little tiny glass beads. It was a fine powder.
You can
I think it
still
was
sell that stuff on
yeah,
tool.
but it's more like industrial stuff. But they would use that as the filler, and I think they tried baking soda too. But I think there's acrylic stuff because it's actually plastic. It's a polymer, so I'm pretty sure that will work too. But we'll do experimenting on my $500 kit.
Whiteout pens work pretty good too, and you can apply them right where you want them.
I've tried it, but the whiteout chemical, I don't like saying it very much. I don't think it looks that good. All right, so there's a couple of different things I use nowadays. The main putty that I use for big stuff and filling stuff that's strong is 3M Acro White. If you buy this you got to get online. You got to buy a big tube of it, which I don't recommend. But if you get Squadron White, which is the smaller tube, Hobbytown carries it, online carries it, and it's good stuff.
It's good.
Basically auto filler putties come in different colors for different grains. The green and the red are the coarser grains, which is fine for doing car stuff and stuff like that, but not on a model. But you want it, the white is the finest grade, and they use it for pinhole filling and stuff like that. For models, it's perfect. I use this straight for big stuff, which I'm going to show you in a second. I have a little jar of it with about that much white putty, and then I have acetone on top of it. And the acetone will dry out, and even if the putty is dry, you can still add acetone and mix it up, and it'll make it putty again. What I use that for is almost like, now see, it's thick. I haven't used this in a while.
Acetone is not thinner.
Acetone's acetone.
Okay.
Eat practically anything.
It's almost like an acid. That's the way it works.
Okay, roger that.
It breaks everything down.
So what I basically do is I make a putty that's like a really thick paint. And then, but I can also just skim the top and get some that's almost liquid like that. And I'll use that with an old tiny paintbrush to fill in pinholes, to fill in small cracks and stuff like that. I can paint it on. What they make now, and what I bought some and I like it, is you've got Mr. Surfacer, and
Good stuff.
yeah, Tamiya also makes one. Do they call it something? Tamiya Surface Primer or something like that.
They have different grades, all the way up to like 15.
But this is basically like the putty that I made. It'll separate. There's some thinner on top, so you want to mix it up. But it's real nice and thin, like that. And I'll show you in a second how to paint. You'll paint on this for the little cracks and stuff like that. So I basically use all three. I've got all kinds of options these days. All right, so what you want to do when you always want to, when you glue in your parts together, you want to dry fit, you want to sand them, you want the fit to be the best that you can. Don't try and slap stuff together. It's like, oh, I can't really get it. I'll slap it and I'll fix it later with the putty. You want to get it as nice as you can, because then you have to do less putty work. What you're going to do, this is an old Eschi kit, so it's got a nice big crack. There's nothing I can do about it. All the gluing in the world. It's got some nice big seams. It's got the wing folds over like that, and then it had two big wing seams like that. This is Acro Blue, which used to be Acro White back in the day. That was the good stuff. So for the bigger cracks, what you're going to do is you're going to take your Tamiya tape or your blue tape or whatever, and you're going to go not quite as close as you can to the crack, but a little bit off of the crack. Less is better. And you're gonna do that to both sides of the crack.
You said crack.
Both sides of the crack.
Both sides.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Not just the middle.
Both sides of the crack, so that you can see your seam. And then I didn't bring a Q-tip, but I'd probably use a Q-tip or a gloved finger. This is the unthin thick stuff, and it's a lot like caulking a bathtub. Put it on there, run it. Blackhawk. Run it down the seam, push it in, get it pretty smooth like that.
Let me stop
And
this
then
right now.
before it dries, don't wait till it dries till the next day, because when you peel the tape off, it's going to crack. While it's not wet, but it's still fresh. You're going to peel the tape off. Then you're going to wind up with a line like that. That's a dry line. That's the one I'm going to sand right now.
Oh, cool.
So back in the day, you used to put the putty on and you just put it on with your finger and stuff like that. But I find using the tape, you're going to get a fine line. You're going to not screw up a lot of detail. And it looks better once you get sanding and stuff like that. Now on something like that wing edge, when I ferreted in there, I peeled it off. I didn't leave a big thick line like I did on this one. So I'll probably, when that dries, be able to get away with just using my finer, my finer sanding sponge and just basically polishing that down. It's almost, because I pressed it in and smoothed it, it's almost finished. I'm not really sanding it. I'm just getting it as smooth as the plastic for painting. For bigger gaps and stuff like that, where you have to come up with a bigger line, and that's a pretty good line right there. I use, what do you call it? These are the nail things. You get them at Walmart and stuff like that in the big packs. They come kind of with two grits. There's a more of a grit on one side, and I'll usually take a piece of wood or on some concrete and knock that down a couple strokes. Maybe even the other side, one or two, because it comes pretty coarse.
Yeah.
So I'll knock it down.
Like emery boards, they're pretty coarse.
Yeah. Emery boards you can't wet sand with,
Right.
because they're paper and they're going to fall apart. This is obviously back to the
Yeah, I found that out the hard way.
Exactly. I think we all did. So I like to cut them up. I like to make it, they come with the rounded edges. I cut that off, so I've got a nice square edge. And then after I do the work I'm going to do on 1 or 2 or 3 seams, that edge is going to get screwed up, and then you just snip off about 1/16 of an inch. You've got like a blade. You've got a good edge again. So I'm going to wet it. I keep a rag on me, and you're going to go. Especially when there's detail, you want to work real small, and kind of go in circles. Keep it wet.
How long did you let that dry before you?
This is at least a day.
Okay.
And it's a thin coat.
Okay.
If I was building something up, I'd let it dry a lot longer.
Okay.
But I'm usually not puttying and then painting the next day, or sanding the next day. I'm usually doing something else or messing with other detail or something like that. But the next day, it should be dry the next day. So you're going to get with the stick, you're going to get it down, so it's not a big line. So it's nice and flush. And also, you're not trying to, and this is a beginner's mistake I made when I was a beginner. You're not trying to put the putty on and then go to town and take all the putty off with the sandpaper, with the sanding stick. You want to, as you go, you want to feel. What you're looking for is to make it one piece. So some parts might wind up with little to no putty on it, and some parts might have a nice thing of putty on it, because that's what makes it one big surface like that. Okay, once you get it down, then I don't think they even make this stuff anymore. We have trouble finding this, but it's a super fine grit. It's not even really going to so much sand this as polish it.
You used to get Amazon's bag.
Yeah, it's expensive though. You've got to buy it by the crate.
No, to me, a polishing pads.
Yeah, to me, a polishing pads at work. This is like 3M. We used to get it at the hardware store and stuff like that. But yeah, get the to me polishing pads and get the finer grits. And once again, you're going to wet sand with it, and just basically make circles. And this is like almost like a final polish before you paint on all the scratches and stuff that you made. You're going to get it. Yeah, it's about good. I took most of it off, which I usually don't do. Also, with the sanding sticks and the sanding pads, when you're doing the wing joint on the front, which got glued together that way, you don't want to go to town and flatten the edge. You kind of want